when August or late July hits, they're like, okay, I will take off the rest of July and August, and then I'll see what's going on in September. And then the same thing, just after Thanksgiving, it's like, oh, I'll go to all of these parties from, the first week of December to the 15th of December, but I'm going to take my foot off the pedal. And then the 15th of December to the 31st of December, it's another break. So if you make $1 in the restaurant, how much money goes into your investors and your pockets, meaning the partners? And I
Yeah.
was like, 14 cents. And she was like, what? It's, the late 70s and 80s in New York City. There was no labor laws. Like if you wanted to beat up a cook, literally, because you weren't happy with them, you sort of could do that. Or if you wanted to, berate them in front of the rest of the kitchen, which is such a bad idea, but that would happen. And he never, I mean, I was friends with him for 36 years or 38 years, and he never gave off any of that. And he was a really good chef, also, like really good.
Today, I have a fun conversation with my buddy Paul Zweben out of New York City, and we talk about his and our observations of the industry. 71% of agents did 0 transactions last year, and we just have a conversation around that. What did they do? Why aren't they producing? And on the flip side, what are the other 29% actually doing? And so there's many cool and interesting layers that get unpacked during that. That being said, my good friend is the sponsor of this podcast, Andy Bovender. He's out of the Carolinas. His team, they've closed over $5 billion in transactions. He has a 50-person team, and they've served more than 5,000 families. So if you have a client who's been thinking about making a move to or from the Carolinas, one, they are absolutely the team to call. But if you're in the position of building out a team, you're trying to figure out how and what to do, connect with Andy's team. They are a phenomenal resource and always willing to share. More specifically, ask them for the GSD guide. That's all for now. Stay tuned for this fun podcast. And as always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Sean Conkler. What's up, Paul? I'm going to dig in with a hard-hitting question for you, if you don't mind.
Go.
So there are about 2 million agents in the US. Last year, and this is crazy to me, but 71% did 0 sales. And so I'll kind of preface that with you being a top performing agent in a very tough and a very competitive market, New York City. What is your observation of like what's missing? How are 71% of the people in our industry not able to produce one single transaction?
Well, I think that there's another form of income in some of those agents' families, which takes pressure off of, people that are commission based. And
Good
the other
point.
thing is, I feel like, in some people's minds, when August or late July hits, they're like, okay, I will take off the rest of July and August, and then I'll see what's going on in September. And then the same thing, just after Thanksgiving, it's like, oh, I'll go to all of these parties from, the first week of December to the 15th of December, but I'm going to take my foot off the pedal. And then the 15th of December to the 31st of December, it's another break.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that most of those people that are not doing deals don't have the financial pressure to do deals, but they're also not doing
Yeah.
the things to create business either.
That's a great point. I guess I haven't reflected on it and from that perspective. I find in now, Jesus, I'm like 25 years of sales experience. I think salespeople need pressure. And I also think really good salespeople need to have a chip on their shoulder, like something to
That would be
prove,
me.
right? Like when you got that thing that's like just it's one thing to be pulled towards a goal. There's another thing to be pushed. And
Right.
that the chip, which I've had and have,
Hmm.
it's just a different fire. And if you need, and you also simultaneously, like, you need the money. Like,
Oh yeah.
you have to pay your rent. You have
Hmm.
to eat. You have to support your family. It's not, oh, it'd be nice to. Like, it is, your feet are to the fire. You have to produce.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you can never really take your foot off the pedal. You really can't.
you can't.
It's like, we're going to rent a house for about a week in Quogue in close to the Hamptons
Yeah.
and in August. And yes, we're going to the beach a couple times but we're working
Yeah.
and we're schmoozing and talking to people in Southampton and
Yeah.
talking to people in East Hampton and talking to people in Quogue and having lunch and having breakfast with them and like you can't stop.
Yeah.
Um, unless you do like one $80 million deal for the year. And if you do, then maybe you can take off, a couple days. It's true.
Give yourself permission to celebrate for a moment and then right back
Right.
at the grind. Once you realize the 80 million deal, which is a boatload of money, and you realize how much the split is, then you realize how much taxes are, and then you start shaving it down. You're like, oh, it's amazing, and now I got to get back to work.
Well, I remember before I got into the real estate business, my wife, who never really understood, because I never really talked to her about the profitability of restaurants, but she was
Yeah,
like, so if you make $1 in the restaurant, how much money goes into your investors and your pockets, meaning the partners? And I
yeah,
was like, 14 cents. And she was like, what? I was like, 14 cents. And those partners are going to get taxed
yeah,
on that money. So maybe they're making 7 cents on the dollar. And she was like, that's bad.
yeah.
Um, but yes, I mean, there's no question with, with commissions and splits and expenses and taxes, it gets cut down fairly quickly.
Yeah, and especially if as you have a team, and then when you start compounding, like your two biggest costs in a business, any business, it's your building, your office, and it's your people. Like
Oh,
those
yeah.
are always your two biggest liabilities.
Hmm.
Period. And then behind that is taxes. And
Yep.
so the bigger the year, the bigger the bill.
Hmm.
And it's so many people. This is like so many prolific agents. I'm friends with a lot of coaches. It's crazy to me how many are in the red with the IRS and they owe
Oh,
back
yeah.
like a boatload of back taxes
Hmm.
because they didn't hire the bookkeeper, they didn't hire the accountant, they didn't worry about, they didn't take care of the business, and now
Right.
they're up the creek.
Well, did you
That's
know? Did you know that? Like at one point, I was going to bring my kids and my family and maybe a couple friends, customers to a World Cup game,
yeah,
and that would have cost easy if it was like 6 or 7 of us. It would have been 10 grand. You can't write off sporting events anymore. Um, I like how Heather's like right in the background. Um, you can't write off. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did. I saw like I
Um,
see a little fragment of a
oh
head
my God!
floating through.
But
It's funny.
you can't write off sporting events anymore. You can write off the dinner and the transportation, but you cannot write off the sporting event.
Uh, yeah, I mean, this is a total tangent, but one of my friends, Jasmine DeLucci, who is on the podcast, she's not only a CPA, but she's an attorney, tax attorney. And her page, if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it. But she basically debunks all these like influencers who are like, oh, I flew to Prague and rented like this villa and we were driving a Rolls Royce and it's all a write off. And she's like, it'll cut to her and she's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
And here's why. And here's what the actual law states.
right.
Um, yeah, when it comes to writing off stuff, I there's two camps. There's the camp that 90% of agents do, business owners, is they buy the thing and then they call the accountant and they ask, how do I write this off?
Right.
What I learned early is call the accountant first and say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Can I structure it for the business?
Right.
And then I get the answer and then I make a decision. It's like simultaneously.
Well, that's
Uh,
like this morning I woke up and we have a lease with a GMC, monster van, whatever, it's Suburban.
yeah.
And in my head, I was like, I wonder if I let the lease, run out and then I buy it because it's over 6,000 pounds
Yep.
and I buy it, but does that work? Because I think it doesn't work. I think it needs to be brand new for
Yeah.
you to be able to write off that whole expense.
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real world results, this system replaces chaos of a to do list with a curated set of high impact actions. It's simple: set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy. You focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day 15 minutes at a time. So this is pretty fascinating, at least to me. So my dad owned a handful of businesses, but started his final business when I was like 5 years old, and then wound up selling it a couple years ago. So he owned and operated it for a good 40 plus years. But fun fact, they actually made surgical staples, and they were the number one producer in the U.S. Um, but I called them at one point and I said, "Hey, I'm getting into real estate. I'm starting a business. You're gonna mentor me. I'm gonna call you on Fridays. I'll call you at 9 a.m. We're not gonna talk about family antics, trips, none of that stuff.
Hmm.
We're talking business from 9 to 10." He's like, "Great." He was retired. He had the time. And on one of the first calls, I said, "Okay, I'm launching this real estate business. Who should my first hire be?" And he was like, "An attorney. Figure out how to structure your business."
Right.
Which is, if you go to any panel, that's not who they say to hire first. It's an
Right.
assistant. And then I was like,
Right.
"Okay, who's the second person?" He's like, "A bookkeeper. You're going to make a big old mess with your receipts and your
Hmm.
purchases. You need somebody to just clean it, continue to be cleaning it behind you."
Right.
And I was like, "Roger that. Who's third?" He's like, "A CPA." And that was, so I was like, done. That's how I'm doing it. Like, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. This dude has already figured it out.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, that's my
That's a
observation
good
and thought,
recipe.
right? And it's all recipes. That's systems and process. It's all
Hmm.
recipes. Like, you don't have to, nobody has to like try to figure out how to make the most amazing chocolate cake. There's a recipe for it by some badass baker who's tried 50,000 failures before they made that perfect,
Right.
absolutely perfect cake.
I agree.
Um, it's interesting to go back to my original question of that there's that large subset who I would put them, now that I'm thinking about it, I'd probably put them in the category of the part-time agent.
Right.
That's
Well, I was at a luncheon about a month and a half ago, and it was like all the Compass people that finished in the top 1.5% of for last year.
yeah,
And the guy that sat down next to me, who I've known for over 20 years, he comes from the restaurant business as well.
interesting.
And he looked at me, he goes, "Oh, look, it's like the kindergartners, every single one of them gets a trophy." But it's because 70% of the agents in the United States are not doing any deals.
Yeah.
The majority of people in the city, not majority, but a lot of them are, doing deals, and that's what brings you to that 1.5%, which is interesting. So we all got trophies.
We got participation awards. This is
Right,
amazing.
right,
Um, you know what's interesting is we just came off of COVID, and there was that period when interest rates were pretty much zero,
right.
and like you and I were running around with our hair on fire, working crazy hours and just slinging deals left and right. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden, the interest rates changed. The market just pulled up the emergency brake, and we're like, what just happened? And everything just
Yeah.
stopped. But observationally, when you see that, when you see those big dips in the market, when everything just stops, that uptick, that bottom of the uptick is the biggest opportunity for those who are able to produce,
Oh yeah.
because there's the fewest amount of agents and you have the least amount of competition. Like
Right.
mathematically, you have far more competition at that when the interest rates were incredibly low
Hmm.
than they are when they spiked. And so
Right.
there was like the money grab is actually when people are running away from the industry, not towards
Right.
it.
Well, and I think that that's going to happen more and more. The 10-year treasury is the highest it's been in a really long time. And I feel like most people, at least now, were fine with 6% mortgage rates. But now that they're ticking up, it's getting a little uglier, and that will affect the amount of agents that keep playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you know, there's a great quote: if you want to get better at the game, then you have to find a better opponent. And I feel like when things get hard like that for us, we have to strive to grow. We have to get better. We have to understand more of the nuances of the conversation of the market, and then we have to then be able to present the opportunities
Yeah,
when they pop up.
I agree.
And it's, you know, growth is uncomfortable, but that's opportunity. It is like in that same, it presents in the same vein.
Well, I think, yesterday you and I were on another call, and we're talking about just like disciplines,
Yeah.
um, and how some people, there's sports people that can be very good agents, and about, people in the ballet and chefs and actors. And like this morning, I woke up at my normal 4:45 a.m. and I was just like, I don't think I'm gonna go to the gym. I just don't. And I walk downstairs, and usually I get the keys from the doorman to get into the gym early because it's not open. And he's like, "Do you need the keys?" And I said, "No, I think I'm going to take a pass." And he looked at me and goes, "You need to go to the gym." And I was
I
just
love that
like,
guy.
"Yeah." And I was like, "You're right. Like you're right." But
Yeah.
that you just have to do it whether you like it or not. You have to make calls.
Yeah.
You have to have a consistent newsletter. You have to, there's just, consistency that has to happen. You have to have a World Cup event, whether it's at a bar or, a private area. Like you got to do these things.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, dude, that dude deserves, you got to honor that
Oh,
for
I love
giving,
him.
giving you that push. I like that's rad that he did that. Yeah, you're right. I remember hearing years ago from a CEO, it's basically, to summarize it, it's consistency over time is results.
Hmm.
And it's like, you know, part of my French, but fuck it if you feel like it or not. Do it.
Right,
It's like
right.
I don't feel like. Do you know how many times like it's just stacking on what you're saying? Like there's so many days that I don't feel like going to the gym,
Oh yeah.
and it's like the conversation I have with myself is, listen, just put on the workout clothes. Like
Hmm.
that's just do that, and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll
Right.
do that. And then it's like, okay, just go downstairs and walk into the gym, and I'm like, oh, fuck, okay, I'll do
Yep.
that, and then put on some good music, and it's like I just baby step it to have that, to change that internal conversation and make myself get to
Yeah.
that next. And then once you're in there, you're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm here.
Right.
And it's not to relate it back to the business. It's like if you just pick up your phone and look at your contacts, you don't have to do anything else. Just look at your contacts. You will see a name that you haven't seen in a while, and you're like, I really need to call that person and just say hi. It's been forever. And
Right,
then let me just make this one quick call, and then
right.
the wheels are in motion. Hey, friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show. Um, I think reflecting back on that 71%, uh, observationally, it's either A, not knowing what to be consistent at, or B, not being consistent.
Right.
And they kind of, one begets the other. Um,
Well, the other thing is, I mean, and not everyone agrees with me, but I believe that you should come into the office to work.
yeah.
And I know that COVID changed that a lot because I listen to people like on the trains and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm interviewing for a job and it's 3 days a week, at work and, in the office and 2 days a week at home. If I'm staying home, I'm like playing with my golden retriever.
Yeah.
I'm not doing enough work that I should be
Yeah.
doing. And the other thing is, if I'm in the office, I hear deals blowing up. I hear how to fix specific deals, the
Yes.
energy. I can talk to my managers. I can go for a walk on the different floors and talk to the marketing people or the PR people. And like the marketing people and the PR people, they're buyers and renters also. And they may like that I come around once a day to say good morning or good
Mm-hmm.
afternoon, and maybe they'll use me. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen if I'm home.
I agree. I mean, simultaneously, I work for a lot from home, and I know that I shouldn't, but I do it because it's just I'm like that 30-minute commute times two, that's
Right,
an hour. I can just and so I shouldn't do that, but I do it.
right,
But I will also say there are many. I can't even tell you how many deals I've had because I was in the office, I was grabbing a coffee, and I'm like, "Hey, so and so, what's up? What are you working on?" And they're like, "Oh, I got this 2 bedroom in Pack Heights." I'm like, "Oh yeah, say more." And they're like, "Yeah, we're thinking about coming to market for 1 million." You know what? I actually have a client for it.
right.
Tell me more. Does it have views? Does it have parking? Does it have this? And
Yep.
they're like, "Oh, it's got this and that." Hey, you know what? Do you mind if I swing by? I just want to take a look at it. And they're like, yeah, yeah, come. And the next thing you know, you're writing a contract on something that you just got wind of because you
Right.
just were in the space. And so there is 100% something to be said about water cooler talk and hearing as especially when you're newer, when you hear that agent who's savvy and the deal's blowing up and you're just listening to how, not what they're saying, but how are they phrasing it, where are their pauses, how are they structuring the negotiation, what are they saying first, how are they pre-positioning something. And it's, you can learn volumes just by being, virtue of osmosis, just
Yeah.
virtue of being in that space. You
100%.
glean so much.
Yeah.
It reminds me, so to kind of get everybody up to speed, we have a mastermind group that you and I are a part of, and Andy Bovender gave a talk yesterday for an hour, which was holy shit, like next level. For context, Andy's team has done about 5 billion in lifetime sales. He has a 50-person team out of the Carolinas. They are crushing it, and he shared that the culture is one thing that he really wishes more people would ask him about, not just systems and process. And culture is being around people. How do they fit in? How do they interact? And that goes directly back to your point of being in the office.
Right.
It's it's that it's the glue. It becomes those nuanced conversations are the glue that puts all of this together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, his team is amazing. And He's probably the calmest human being I've ever listened to in my life. Like so calm. Like I get on the train in the morning, I'm like, I'm gonna kill three people and trip two, and then I'm gonna be fine for the rest of the day.
Oh
I'm
man.
kidding. I'm not gonna kill three people, but I might trip two people.
I've done it in my head though. Yeah. So I have an Australian cattle dog, which, if you're not familiar with the breed, it is a herding dog. Uh, if the Belgian Malinois is like the Navy SEAL of dogs, the Australian cattle dog is like the Marlboro smoking, whiskey drinking, will
Oh my
stab you
God.
in the back alley type dog.
Right. Uh-huh.
And the gift she has given me is to learn to be patient.
Yep.
So I feel you about like not wanting to go crazy on people on the train in the first
Yep.
5 minutes of interacting with humans.
Yep.
Yeah, Andy's a different breed. He's got a different way he sees the world in a really kind way. He's
Yep.
he just leads with contribution, and that call. It was like, ask me any questions you want about my business. Happy to share, and he did.
There was a chef who unfortunately passed away in April.
Mm.
We're actually having his memorial on Monday, and his name was Tom Valenti. And when he passed, he was only 67.
Oh, geez.
Um, I got a call from a guy named Lawrence Kretschmer, and Lawrence is Bobby Flay's business partner.
Oh, wow.
And I had done a video like the day before Lawrence gave me a call, and Lawrence calls me and he's like, "Do you know what was amazing about Tom?" And I knew what the answer was, but I said, what is it?" He goes, "Tom never made one enemy in 40 years cooking in New York City, which is
Hmm.
virtually impossible, but he just was always calm." And then Andrew Zimmern, who's on the Food Network, who used to eat all the crazy foods,
Yeah.
he basically said that him and like three other guys in the probably the late 80s went to dinner at a restaurant that Tom was running at Allison's on Dominic Street. They drank too much, and then they took a bottle of wine outside of the restaurant when they were done, and they were like drinking on the curb, and Tom came out and just put his arm around Andrew and said, "What are you doing? Go home." And that's not how chefs react. But
Yeah.
that was Tom. He was just this calming teacher, and everyone wanted to work for him, like everyone.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of Andy, and maybe that's how he would act in a kitchen. Um, which is, I think it's a winning ingredient.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have not worked in a restaurant or a kitchen, but I've watched my fair share of shows, and it's interesting you sharing that, because there's definitely the Gordon Ramsay subculture of like, we just yell and cut
Right.
people down to get them to perform, and somebody who's your friend Tom, who clearly did that way before the curve, like
Oh
changed
yeah.
the culture.
Hmm.
It's interesting that he radically bucked the system, because
Yeah.
just from what I've gathered, it's not like that's what he did was not the norm. Like, it was radically different. And so
Well,
to
it
not
was,
make any enemies is
yeah,
great.
and it was very different in like the late 70s and 80s in New York City. There was no labor laws. Like if you wanted to beat up a cook, literally, because you weren't happy with them, you sort of could do that. Or if you wanted to, berate them in front of the rest of the kitchen, which is such a bad idea, but that would happen. And he never, I mean, I was friends with him for 36 years or 38 years, and he never gave off any of that. And he was a really good chef, also, like really good.
There's actually more recently lots of studies that have come out that, and this is obviously nuanced, but praising versus berating,
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually get way more performance out of people when
Hmm.
their stress levels are lower.
Of course.
And simultaneously there are people, this is also proven too, is when you're calm, you're far more resourceful. Like if you're
Yes.
going into a deal, it's blowing up, the agent on the other side is having a freaking meltdown, your their clients melting down, the attorney's freaking out, like it's going to be an uphill battle. But
Hmm.
if everybody's calm, then everybody's resourceful and you're like, hey, listen, you want this, you want to sell, my buyers want to buy, how do we bridge the gap?
Right.
Totally different experience. And I think, you know, as you move up the ladder and you start bringing people on, that's part of the culture. If you're always blowing up, you're always freaking out, there you're just giving everybody under you a permission
Right.
to do and be that, and you're, if that's cool if that's what you want to do, but it's perpetuating it. um
Yeah.
I had a business coach, Melinda, years ago, and probably one of the best business coaches I've ever had. But she had me, when we first started working together, basically write down what is the culture I'm actually trying to create. And then we
Hmm.
broke it down into almost like bullet points. And then this is weird, but my great uncle passed away. When he passed away, he had all these coins, and I somehow managed to get like a handful of them. And so I have these, I have silver $50. This is a
Hmm.
weird tangent, but it'll make sense in a second.
Right.
And so Melinda wanted me to basically acknowledge my team daily whenever they were acting in accordance of the culture, like that I'm trying to set forward. So anytime somebody was doing, like they went above and beyond for a client, you would acknowledge them. And so I would keep these 5 coins on my desk and I would keep them all tails down. And when I acknowledged them, my reward was flipping a coin over heads up. And my goal by the end of the day was to have 5 heads up. And
Right.
so, which I'm then approaching this from a different abundance mindset, is I'm now looking not for problems, but looking for opportunities to praise.
Yep.
My team is getting praised for doing the things that are in accordance to my team. And then I have a way to actually tangibly measure this thing and keep it moving forward. And that genuinely helps me reshape the way that I was, like, instead of defaulting to just being shitty with everybody, it
Right.
really helped me work on, hey, I really appreciate the way you handled X, Y, and Z. Let's look at it this way so we can make these adjustments and then blank,
Hmm.
you know, move it to this place, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I love that.
Um,
That's very cool.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to. Andy brought it up yesterday, but there's areas where we need to slow down to
Hmm.
build, and then we can go fast. And sometimes the level of the business will basically top out at the leader's top ability.
Right.
And so if we want to go up, like if we want the business to go up, we got to go, like we have to figure out how to grow.
Hmm. Well, one of the things which, and I'll never forget this, but so my first job in New York City as a chef was at the River Cafe in Brooklyn. It's a barge underneath the Brooklyn Bridge,
Oh wow.
and um, David Burke was the chef, and there was one station called Hot App, which was hot appetizers, and
Yeah.
literally you had to wash your own pans, and it was a super fast station, like, and each appetizer would have 3 pans to pick up. So if there were 5 apps called out, you had 12 to 15 pans on all these burners, and then you're washing the pans. But the one thing that was very important was, and you had to go at top speed. You were at 100 miles an hour, but the minute you plated is when you stopped and then you slowed down.
Yeah.
And like, because that was like the finishing touch, because if you didn't slow down, there'd be sauce all over the plate. It wouldn't look as clean and, beautiful.
Yeah.
And like that, I have taken into so many different things in my life where yes, you can do this, but at the end, it's like stop and plate it properly.
It's funny you say that because I've been watching Hell's Kitchen. I have like weird shows that I love to watch, but I realized that like it's interesting to hear you coming from that world. But I like watching the show and I try to look at it. I don't just watch it for entertainment. I rarely just watch shows for entertainment. I watch them as like,
Right,
what can I learn for my business? Like,
right,
what's oh, there's a system. Oh, they're having to communicate. And I did observe that of like, holy shit, they have to like go all out and then pull up the emergency brake, slow
right.
way down, do this thing with precision,
Hmm.
plate it so it looks amazing, wipe the plate, make it
Hmm.
look perfect, and then it's got to get the final check at the pass and then it moves forward. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
it's very similar to our business.
Yeah. Like
Um,
when we go out to dinner now, if I get a cold plate for like with an entree on it, I'm just like they're not paying attention in the kitchen because those plates should be at least warm to the touch
yeah.
because the minute the food starts going out, it's losing temperature. And if you have a the warm plate's helping it stay at least, at that temperature for,
Yeah.
a couple minutes before it goes down in front of the guest. Um, but so when we go out to dinner, and I don't criticize, but I'm like, the plates were not hot, or
Yeah.
anticipating the customer's needs before they know it.
Yeah, it's you can't it's interesting. You can't unsee it. Like especially if for you being
Hmm.
a former chef going to eat, like you can't not see.
Right,
Like it's hard to turn it's I would venture to say it's almost impossible to turn that off and just conscious or subconsciously picking up all these observations and giving the nod. It's like when a good salesperson approaches me, I love it. Like
right.
I sit in awe. I'm like, oh my God, this person is so good. They're so
Yep,
polished. Like
yep.
they're bobbing and weaving as I'm asking questions and it's
Hmm.
like I love it. And on the flip side, when they're not good, it calls so much attention to itself that you can't your brain can't turn that thing off. Like you're like,
Right.
oh my God, this is such a train wreck.
Well, but
Oh,
it's like I remember I, there are certain clothing stores in the city that are clearly the guys and gals are on commission, and
100%.
you walk in and you're either taking care of like a customer,
Yeah.
or you walk in and you have a dollar sign tattooed on your forehead,
Yes.
and you can feel it immediately. And
Immediately.
right, and
Yeah.
and
That's an easy one for everybody to recognize.
mhm.
And simultaneously, like sometimes I'm not wearing a suit and I'm just out and about and I happen to see a property that's open and I'll run in immediately. I'm telling you within 30 seconds when I don't look like an agent, I immediately know if that person is brand new, starving for a sale.
Yep.
It,
Well,
it, it's
right.
it's like there's markings are all over the place,
Hmm. No, no, it's 100% true. 100%. Car salesmen also.
right? Yeah,
Some of them,
when they're polished, it's so good.
yep. I mean, I hate the saying, but it's, commission breath,
A hundred
which
percent.
I actually hate. That and deep dive are not my favorite, you know, subjects. But commission breath, it's like it's a real thing, like a real thing in our business.
Um, this is a total random ADHD thought. So my friend, this was years ago, was interviewing with Elon Musk, and before he went in, the secretary was like, "Here are a list of words you cannot use," and iterate was one of them. And my buddy went in and he said it was like super weird because the chairs were side by side. And so
Uh-huh.
they were both facing the same direction. And he sits down, and then Elon Musk sits next to him, and they're now facing forward, not each other. And then he's like going through his like talking points, and then says the word iteration, and, and Musk leads in and whispers in his ear, "Don't ever fucking use that word again."
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So yeah, I think we all have those words.
Yeah, deep dive.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's this is way off topic. So I started to get into competitive shooting, and what's really fascinating about that is you literally have to run and be precise, and then you have to run and then slow down and stop and be precise. And so the whole thing is about speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. And that's it's like what we do when we're getting a property ready for to list or whatnot. It's like there's areas when you're just mashing the gas pedal, but then right as the marketing collateral comes, is like final. It's like you're going through the final process. That's when everybody
Hmm.
has to slow down and like, all right, look to make sure everything's correct. Is the
Right.
square footage exactly what it needs to be? Is the money shot that the absolute perfect photo we should use here?
Hmm.
And so it's just fascinating, similar to the kitchen, where there's knowing where you can speed up and slow down. And I think observationally too, knowing where you can speed up and slow down, and then knowing where your critical points are, and then knowing as a leader where you can let your team explore and fail, but fail safely, because it's
Hmm.
not passing a critical point, and the
Right.
critical point gets another final check, and that prevents us from being a micromanager, but it allows the team to grow and come up with new ways of doing things and better, more efficient ways to actually produce the product.
Yep. 100%.
I know that was a weird lot of little random tangents backed into that. Um,
I'm not gonna ever competitive shoot, so I learned a lot. Um, when I remember I went on an investor trip to Argentina, um, like 25 years ago or 20 years ago, and they went skeet shooting,
so fun.
and they put the rifle in my hand, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not holding this. So I retired from that any gun sport that I could fairly quickly. Made a
That's
quick
fair.
decision.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I get it. It's not for everybody. I grew up in a more rural area, and
right.
like I literally just grew up around it. So it has been just always very normal, for me. But
Well, our
I also
house.
think it's really fascinating because obviously there's very specific safety rules. You
Oh,
cannot.
I'm
There's
sure.
four of them. You cannot break. Like it's their
Right,
gospel, and
right,
then within that, it's all about figuring out, as any sport, its efficiencies.
right.
It's in cooking, right? It's everything is always like, how do I shave a second here and a second there
Hmm.
without compromising the end result, but move in the most efficient way? That's what a negotiation is. Like,
Yep.
we've all been in a negotiation where you've used way too many words and
Oh
you
yeah.
just made it confusing. And now
Hmm.
you're not getting the result you want. And you're like, shit, now I have to simplify to move the needle. And that's with sports, with business, with cooking. Like that's for me where I always find that's the fascinating part. What's the economy of motion, and how do we get as like how do we shave all those extraneous pieces off to get
Right.
to the essence of what we're doing?
Yep.
I'm curious. So we have 71% of these agents who literally produce zero. Then you have 29% who now take the lion's share of production. And
Right.
I would probably venture to say only 20% of those are the ones actually dominating the
Hmm.
industry. What are they doing? Like, if you can distill, in your opinion, like in their day, their week, their month, what are the, let's say, the three things that they're just consistently returning back to over and over and over and over?
They're going to the gym. They are happy for other people's successes,
Hmm,
and they listen.
that's fascinating. I'm I'm thinking this through. I would agree.
I mean, it's like look at the right winger for Spain who's 18 years old, right? And I don't know if you played soccer as a kid, but I did. And in
No.
my head, I'm watching him play, and I'm like, why didn't I play, for the U.S. national team at 18? Obviously, I wasn't as good as this kid, but in my head, I'm also like, this is amazing for this kid and an incredible story for his family.
Yeah,
I mean,
huge.
just, and it's like, I respect him and I'm happy for his success.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, it's a novel, that book.
yeah. I mean, what an anomaly.
Right.
Yeah, at 18, I can barely figure out what direction was up.
But you have to be like, you have to be happy for other people, because there's plenty of people that are just like, oh, he does more business than me. I can't stand the
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah. I'm like thinking this through, but thinking of our mastermind group, and it's all high performing agents,
Hmm.
and there's no one on the call who doesn't share.
Right.
Like everybody, we don't record the calls, which is awesome, and
Right.
then which gives people permission to really just pop the hood and show the engine that they're running, and everybody does.
Hmm.
Like some of the things that Francie Molina out of Westchester has shared, or Andy Bovender has shared, and what you've shared, you're just like, holy shit! Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like that's their one of their secret components, and they're
Yeah.
like, here, yeah, like Andy's created a whole his GSD guide, and he's like, who wants it? You can have it.
Right.
And his team has like worked years on developing
Right.
it, refining it some more, testing it, reworking it. And he's like, no, you can just have it. And I
Right.
literally saw it and I was like, man, I don't know why you're not selling this. And he's like, I
Right.
just want to give it away and raise the bar of the industry.
Right.
And that immediate that just leans onto your point. Is like there's something different when to go back to the word that you hate, the commission breath. The commission breath is like, what's in it for me? Where's
Right.
my paycheck? Whereas the abundance breath, nobody talks about, is how can I help you?
Right.
Did you have any questions? Like, where's your, if you're stuck or confused, I'm here. And totally different experience. And if you go back to your point about walking into a store, you immediately know how their paycheck is structured immediately within seconds.
Hmm. I mean, go into a diner. They're either a pool house or they're individual. And the pool house is, they see in another section somebody needs water, they just bring the water over. If it's individual, that waitress or waiter in the diner is not even looking at another section ever.
Mm,
And that's the mentality. It's like, is it a team or is it individual?
yeah. Yeah.
And that's why
That's
the pool houses work.
it's a different experience when your team members don't even ask. They just support you.
Right.
Like, hey, I see on your schedule you're like totally buried and this person wants to show. I'm happy to jump in. And you're like, oh my God, like thank you.
Hmm.
Because us Gen Xers, latchkey kids, were like, no, I'll just bury myself in work and get it done.
Right. Right.
I don't need to ask for help.
Right. Right.
What are your goals for this year? Do you have anything big you're working on for the business?
Um, to continue to build our team.
Mm.
It's not incredibly easy in New York City, especially the way, like, if you go outside of our company, it's easier to get people and bring them on. But if they're principals
Mm.
within the company, they can join your team, but you have separate gross commission incomes, which sort of doesn't make
Zero. It
anyway.
makes zero sense. It's one of my
Right,
points of contention, and I've had many of arguments about this.
right. I mean, I understand why it's done, but I also don't understand.
You
Um,
know, it's like laws. Like laws are made because one jackhole decide to do that thing,
mhm,
and the community was like, "That's not cool," and so
right,
then, and so one person basically mucked it up for all of us.
right. Because if you look at the early teams, there's a lot of people on these teams, and it was like, okay, I'm at X spread, and they're at Y spread, and there's that difference, and then it totally makes sense. Um, anyway, but
When
you
when
just keep plugging away. But
when we
I
go
mean,
off when we go off air, I'll tell you the story about
okay,
that.
okay, but no. So growing the team, continuing to help the team members cultivate their business and our team business, and staying on not missing a day of going to the gym. I think
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm at like 203 or 204 year to date, but however many days have been completed in
Good for you,
2000.
man.
Yeah,
Dude, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's the most I've ever done, like
Th-
ever.
it- Incredible.
Yeah, but it
Seriously.
helps me. Um, like when there is a problem, it's less intense,
Yes.
as opposed to when I'm not going to the gym and something happens. It's like, okay, the world is ending.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I feel you.
um, and then obviously, get more versed with like the company's AI, and
Yeah.
like my chat GPT, her name is Sue, Sous. So she's my sous chef,
Sous chef. There
and
you go.
she makes me look better. But
Yeah.
the more I get to know her, the better she gets
Yeah.
in writing. So, and that's constantly, learning from each other. And I forget what the percentage is of like the Generation Zs, but they have, I think there's like 71% of everyone, all the kids that are with ChatGPT, they have a relationship with it,
Yeah.
which is
I
amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the number one searches on AI is mental health.
Right,
And it's usually about that individuals. Like
right.
they're trying to process their own thoughts. Um, yeah, to go back to the gym, the other day I had like two crazy deals, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to make a decision right now. I'm gonna go to the gym, and
Right.
I literally hopped on the treadmill. I threw on a weight vest, and I was like, I'm gonna crank this thing up until the tightness in my chest goes away. And it was
Yep.
40 minutes of me just sweating my butt off. And then I was like, all right, I feel better. I'm going to go take a shower and then I'm going to approach this. And
Yep.
I felt way calmer and way more productive. And I would also say more resourceful in finding solutions to both those unique problems. And
Hmm.
it was just a matter of me, like, I think one of the things we do observationally is we put so much pressure on ourselves to do things right now.
Hmm.
And if we can just pause and really evaluate without drawing an opinion, but just evaluate the actual timeline, most things can wait. And then if they can, and you have the ability, and you can just like remove yourself from the situation,
Yep.
go walk your dog, go to the gym,
Yep.
Just
Walk
maybe
around the
just
block. Yep.
walk around the, even just walk outside and take 3 deep breaths.
Hmm.
Like it will reset things. It's scientifically proven that when you're in a fight or flight stress mode, it takes 20 minutes for your body to come all the way back down. And so if you can just pull yourself out for 20 minutes and just let that stuff burn out, you'll come
Yep.
back in just such a better space.
I
And
agree.
and I would be curious, and unfortunately Tom has passed, but it's like, how, I'm curious, like, how did he view the world, and how did he step back from those moments, and what was the story that he was telling himself to keep
Right.
himself in that true leadership mindset
Right.
rather than just like this frantic
Right.
craziness.
Well, he was a big fisherman, um, and I think that like him and Tom Colicchio would like. I think they fly fished together,
Love it.
um,
Yeah.
and I think that helped both of them because Colicchio also is. If you see him on the TV shows, he's super calm,
Yeah.
like super calm. And I remember years ago, I think it was in '91. Tom was like at the top of his game. He had just opened Gramercy Tavern,
Yeah.
and I there was a cook that wanted to come and work for me, and he worked for Tom. And I called Tom, and it was like at the end of lunch service. So it was like 2:45 p.m. I'm like, "Hey Tom, this is Paul Zweben. I'm the chef at Chelsea Central." And Tom said, "I know who the fuck you are." And I was like, "Oh my God, like really?" And he's like, "Of course." And then I was like, there's this kid that's looking for a job. He's worked for you. Would you recommend him? And he's like, 100%. But he was, other than saying, "I know who the fuck you are," but it was very calm. It
Yeah.
was like, that's who he is and still is. He's just a
Yeah.
calm dude. And him and Tom Valente were very, very close, especially in the fishing world.
Yeah. I, I'm going to screw up this quote, but I love fly fishing. Um, there's a quote, and I don't remember who said it, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something to the effect of men will spend a lifetime. It's like men will spend a lifetime fishing only to realize it's not the fish that they're after. And there is something when you're fly fishing that it is the most calm, relaxing experience
Wow.
ever. It's super frustrating.
Right.
I'll preface it with that because it's
Right.
really, really technically hard. Once you get past that and you're just standing in the river and you feel the pressure and the temperature of the water pushed on your legs,
Hmm.
and you have the cool breeze coming upstream and you can just hear the babbling of the river, and you're just watching your line and watching the tension and watching the float. There's just there's something just really magical that happens in that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
My one of my only fishing stories ever was my wife and I went on like a fishing charter boat, and I cast the line, and all of a sudden I have like a huge fish on the line, and I'm like pulling, and the fishing pole is like bending like a curve,
Holy jeez.
and all of a sudden the guy that's working on the boat comes over. He's like, "You're just caught on the bottom of the boat, man." And I'm like, I was like, "Man, I thought we were getting a big fish."
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
My grandparents at their house on their back porch, my grandmother had this like, it was like this cool frame, and mounted to the frame was a hammer. It was all like rusted and dilapidated. They went deep sea fishing on a trip to Hawaii, and literally the only thing my grandmother caught was that hammer. That was it.
Makes sense.
And it
Makes
was,
sense,
she
man.
had it mounted like it was like this like trophy fish. It was
Oh my God.
hilarious.
That is so funny.
Um, Gosh, talk about good food. She was Sicilian and made the most incredible pizza that
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
don't have the recipe and I've never been able to replicate to this day. And I
I'm sure. I'm sure.
deeply miss it, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Paul, this was fun, man. It's always refreshing chatting with you, and I love your perspective on
Thank you.
life and in this
Right
business.
back at you.
So that, my friend, that's a wrap.